Hey everybody, welcome to the Value Add Podcast with EQ. Of course, I'm your host EQ, and this, like every other episode, I bring a dynamic, awesome, inspirational guest to hopefully add value to you on your journey to becoming your best self. And guess what, guys? This episode is actually, I think, going to be one of my favorite episodes because this fella that I'm going to introduce you to in recent times has really lit a fire under my ass to get some shit done. And I can tell you a little bit about him, but I want him to do that. So without further ado, please welcome to the Value Add Podcast, my friend. I like to call him a mentor, but I know. But my friend, my mentor, my accountability partner, Jonathan Cunnigham. Jonathan, welcome to the podcast, man.
Thank you. We've been talking about this for a while and haven't actually got it done yet. So this is cool.
No, I'm so glad. I know you're super busy, so I'm so glad that you were able to make some time to just kind of come and shoot the shit with me and like we always do. And just add value to the audience, right? So, okay. Jonathan, I've known you for a number of years. We recently reconnected, but for those who may not know who Jonathan is, I want you to just introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Okay. I'm originally from Ontario, Canada, and I came down to the Bahamas when I was, let's say, about 19 years old. And I was sent down here to do some work. I was a cabinet maker over at Atlantis on Paradise Island for Kerzner. They sent me for 1 week. It ended up being 3 months, and I left and swore I would never come back to the Bahamas again. We worked every day nonstop for 3 months trying to get the job completed. And I sat with a guy on the plane on the way home. A couple months later, I was back here building his house. And so it's been 22 years that I've been here in the Bahamas. And I'm a cabinet maker by trade. I've worked for several of the large developments here in the Bahamas, but ultimately I've been self-employed pretty much my whole life. And I've transitioned from a skilled trade in the beginning through many years of hard work and owning businesses. And now we have a small to medium-sized business, and I love the challenge and learning the new skill of running a business and running a business successfully that can grow and really flourish and become something spectacular.
Awesome. Now, I want to get an appreciation for little JC, right? Like, I mean, when you were running around Ontario, Canada, did you say that, you know what, I want to, have the top millwork company in the Bahamas or in the Caribbean or in the, world? Like, what were you thinking about or what were you doing? What were your aspirations when you were just a little kid? What, you guys playing hockey and running around in Ontario, man?
I don't know if that's what it was when I was really little. I started out in the woodworking industry with my grandfather in his basement workshop, and I would have been like 5-6 years old, just nailing two pieces of wood together and calling it an airplane, right? So that's my first memory of sort of woodworking. But I do remember, I think it was probably in my late teens, almost finished high school, somewhere in there, I was working with a guy that had a really nice high-end custom shop. They did amazing quality work. And I remember when he interviewed me, I told him I wanted to own the largest construction company in the world. And I was dead serious. And that was my goal. And I think somewhere along the line, once I did start working for myself, that might have waned a little. And you realize, like, oh, my God, this is hard. But, yeah, I think that was kind of always there. Always been in the background, always been, some drive from the very beginning.
Awesome. So now when you got that call, because I think, there's so many different conversations that we can have. I mean, you literally picking up and leaving everything that you knew from, 0 to 19, 20, 21, 22, and then coming down to the Bahamas, right? So, like, kind of talk me through. I know it wasn't your intention to stay here for 22 years, but that's what the Bahamas does. It's better than the Bahamas. Like, it's right. the best place in the world to live. Yeah. But, like, I want you to kind of talk me through that point. Like, you came down, it was supposed to be for 2 weeks, and then it was 3 months, and then it's like you went and swore never to come back, and then you were back, and then you ended up saying passport 22 years. Like, kind of talk me through what was going on with Jonathan that led us to, I've been here 22 years.
Well, I think one of the interesting things I talk about actually actively today with my business coaches, I've always had this desire that I'm out of time, or that time is ending soon. And so I've always had that since a little kid. So I graduated high school, I was a year or 2 years early, and I moved to Scotland and took a joinery apprenticeship. So I think it was 18 years old. It was just always that sort of desire to do it quicker and do it faster. And so when the Bahamas came along, I was already traveling. I worked all over the U.S. and some in Bermuda, and I just had that burning desire. Like I wasn't afraid to travel. I wasn't afraid to leave home. I'd already been gone for years, and I was all over the place. So it was just sort of another day of the office, right? I think the thing that I liked about it, or I like about the industry here, is that we do really high quality work. This luxury residential market that we work in is very custom. It's never been done before. Every job is completely different, and you start to get addicted to that. And in the rest of the world, you do a lot of production type work. You'll do banks, and you'll do insurance companies and office buildings and these kind of things, and they're the same over and over. So you produce thousands of units of things, and that's not at all what we do here. Everything is totally different. And then on top of that, there's this whole element of difficulty. Right. We're on an island in the middle of nowhere. It's really hard to get things here. And so this whole challenge of having to be incredibly organized and getting stuff here without damage and being able to install it, and you don't get a second chance. You can't run down the street to Home Depot and pick up some pieces.
There is no Home Depot.
No, there's it's so difficult compared to what anybody else would experience in the woodworking industry in Canada or the U.S. So I think that's what's kind of led me to maybe stay here all these years, and why I enjoy it so much is some of that challenge. And on top of all that, some good weather. So.
Awesome. Now, I mean, I know what you do, right? But for those, I want you to kind of, for context, right? Tell us a little bit about Zoana and what you guys do there at Zoana Millwork.
Okay, so we're a millwork company, which is sort of a broad definition. But it encompasses everything from cabinetry, wood flooring, doors, staircases, exterior woodwork. It's just about any type of wood product. And then on top of that, we throw in some exterior kitchens and other things that aren't even wood. But so we have a very broad range of things that we do. And we provide those products. We procure them from different places around the world, different countries, and ship them all down to the Bahamas. And we have a team here that installs all those products. And we work on several different islands doing those things, mostly in these luxury, high-end communities.
Now, that's some sexy stuff. Like, I mean,
pretty fun,
when I look at the communities that you work with, and even your client roster, right? Like, you have some pretty heavy hitters, right? And I've heard you talk about the fact that they may not know who Zoana is or even Jonathan Cunnigham is, but you have an A-list roster of celebrities and influencers that you work with. And so, I mean, you can feel free to drop names, but but what is the pressure? If there is, I'm sure there's pressure, but like when you walk on a site, like, do you know in advance that you're working on fucking Tiger Woods' house or Shania Twain? Like y'all, so like what is the Zoana team meeting the morning, like the first morning that you guys are going to hit Tiger Woods' place?
Yeah. Man? You'd think it would kind of be a big deal, but it's really not. And I guess in some ways we're just immune to it after all these years. We're surrounded by celebrities and influencers, and we work with them every day. I used to keep a running track of how many billionaires I was working for at a time. Most people don't even know a billionaire,
Right.
And it was always right around 5,
Right.
You know, like I had the cell phone number of 5 billionaires that I'm in their kitchen or their bathroom like once a week, right? So I think we just get so used to it that we also like to think that, you know, every client is the same. We don't like up our game because all of a sudden it's an A-list celebrity. It's kind of cool. We also don't use their names in any marketing, or we didn't use it in any way.
I would totally name drop. every client I'm prospecting, dude. I did Tiger Woods' place or Tom Brady's place.
We just don't really do it, right?
Wow.
We take pride in the work we do, no matter which house it's in, and it's just as good for everyone. But yeah, it is a little bit fun in some ways to say I've pretty much worked for almost every A-list celebrity you can think of that's come to the Bahamas. It's fun for sure.
No, I think that's incredible, man. So now, and guys, I'm going to let you know that Jonathan is somebody that I call on pretty much regularly. Like I'm having a problem. So to give you guys context, right now I'm working on building my business. I've built several 6-figure businesses successfully. Right? I know I can take a business from 0 to 6 figures, 12, 15, 18 months, right?
Yeah.
I'm confident in my ability to do that. But I've never crossed over to that 7-figure mark, right?
Yeah.
And so that's really what I'm chasing now. And I look at you and what you've done with Zoanna, and I think the reason I call you a lot is because it isn't like you're 20 steps ahead of me.
Right.
It isn't like you're 10 steps ahead of me. Like you're like 5 steps. Like, I mean, I remember calling you the other day when I was having some challenges with my team, and you were like, I just dealt with that shit like 2 years ago. Or last year I was dealing with that.
Right.
And so, so I call on you a lot for that. But I really want you to talk about, from a business standpoint, when you made that decision to say, okay, well, I'm going to go out on my own 100%, right? Like, what was the preparation for that? What was the catalyst for, fuck this, I'm going? like what was the final tipping point? Like, kind of talk me through, where were you in your life, mentally, emotionally, that really said, you know what, I can bet on myself and I want to do this for myself.
I think I've always had confidence in myself. Didn't matter. But as far as preparation, there was none. Zero preparation. I was actually on a job site in Bermuda. I was an employee of this large cabinet shop installing in Bermuda, and I wanted to go home and play a golf tournament. And it was a small mini tour I played on, and I was leading, and this is a big deal to me. I was, 20 years old, right? This is a big deal. And the owner of the company said, absolutely not. You cannot go home. You have to get this job done. And I said, well, forget it then. I'm out of here. And so I called him and said, I quit. I leave. I'm gone. And I flew home and I played the golf tournament. I think I won. And I flew back on Monday. He hired me as a subcontractor. He begged me to come back. And I said, yeah, I'll go back.
Wow.
That was on Monday's flight. And I said, but I'm not going to be an employee anymore. I'm only going to be a subcontractor. And that's really how it all started. So zero preparation, totally not ready, but it worked out. But I had confidence in myself, and I just knew that I'd be able to figure it out. That was it, right?
So if you were to go back, right? I mean, because like you said, you were 20, so that was 20 plus years ago, right? If you, knowing what you know now, would you have done anything different? Like, do you think you would have given yourself a little bit more time? Or like, because what I heard was, I quit because I wanted to play golf, and he told me no.
That's exactly it. Yeah. And honestly, like, I would say now, looking back, like, that's a really good quality in business. It's attacking the problem, right? It's not deliberating. I could have thought about it for months, and I could have written business plans and all kinds of things, and the results wouldn't have changed. It was still me as a one-man show and my skills and ability that were going to earn me a living. So today, in order to grow the business and go where we want to go, I take those kind of risks every day. And you sort of, you have to, I think it's changing your mindset, but you have to almost get used to that and the ability to not overanalyze and just attack it and go. And I think it's a big asset in business, right? And if you study people that are really successful, they just don't take a long time analyzing and thinking about it. They just attack it and go and figure out how to do it afterwards.
Like I'll tell you no lie. One of the things that you said to me relatively recently that I have been playing in my mind over and over whenever I'm hesitating or waiting to pull the trigger on something that you said let's fuck up fast.
Yeah.
like let's mess up,
thing.
like just jump in, because the quicker you can fail or mess up, or the faster you learn, the faster you can correct, right? But if you spend all this time theorizing, for lack of a better term, you don't really get that practical, this is what needs to be done and this is the best way to do it because I have this proof of concept that failed, or so like that's something that's been sticking with me for a while. So what I want to ask you though, so when you said, okay, the guy hired you back as a subcontractor, was that I mean, you were a one-man show, or right?
Yep.
So how do you go from, being I mean, I think the correct term is solo entrepreneur, or solopreneur.
Right. That's right.
Like, but how do you go from a one-man band to building out a team, but not just hiring people, but building out a quality team? Because I am very, very impressed with what you've been able to do with your guys, right? And I want to get into that, but I think that's one of my personal greatest challenges in business right now is building up my team, because I like you and I are both a Grant Cardone 10X guys, right? And Grant was like, oh, you should build out the team. And I went on this hiring frenzy, right? And I hired a bunch of people, and he's like, you'll figure out how to pay them. And oddly enough, I figured out how to pay them. But what ended up happening was that was not sustainable, because after digging deeper, we didn't share the same values. Right. Like, they didn't have the vision. And so I'm very interested in knowing how you went about from being a solopreneur to now building out this team, but not just building out a team, but building out a team with guys and people that see a vision, and that like you pretty much duplicated yourself as far as mindset, drive, tenacity, like client care, talk me through that, man.
Well, the initial 20 years are like blood, sweat, and tears, right? Going from a one-man show to hiring employees and not really knowing how to be a leader or knowing how to deal with employees. I think at the most I had 15 employees and had no idea what I was doing as a leader, and I have no problem saying that. And eventually, after sort of enough blood, sweat, and tears over the years, I got to the point where I learned that the best thing you can do is learn from somebody else. And I eventually hired a business coach. Now I have multiple business coaches. We do weekly meetings, do very intensive business training. But, for the first 20 years, I would have said it's very hard to find good people.
Right.
And what I learned in hindsight was I was saying that because they didn't knock on my door Monday morning and say, I'm the best there is, hire me. And that didn't happen for 20 years, so I complained about it. But that certainly doesn't get you anywhere in business.
Right.
So really what you need to do is you need to look at your biggest issue and your biggest problem and attack it. And for most businesses, it's people. You need people. People generate revenue. And if you look at your employees as assets that make you money, you need more of them. You need more people in order to make more money. And you have to look at them that way. You can't look at them like, oh man, I got to pay these people again. And boy, they don't work hard enough, and this overtime is killing me. And that's how most businesses think. Business owners, like, it's really stressful to have people. And that's just the wrong mindset. And if you're looking at them that way, then you're effectively treating them that way. You're getting those kind of poor results out of them. And it's John Maxwell's rule, the law of the mirror. What you see in front of you is because you've caused it, right?
Right.
You've made that happen. And so if your employees are a problem, you're getting zero production, and they're costing you too much money, it's because of the things you're doing, and you're not doing it right. And so I learned that through hiring consultants to teach me how to do it. And now I'm applying all of these rules in our business, and we're growing exponentially. And my team is just taking over everything. And it's just a transition to become a real leader.
So, I mean, you said a couple of things. And honestly, I picked up at least 5 things that could really be a whole episode on the podcast, right? But so you let's talk about, you have this person out there who may be listening, right? They made the jump into entrepreneurship. They're like, I'm going to bet on myself, right? They love what they're doing. They're seeing some success. Now they want to build a team, right? Mm-hmm. And to kind of give context, like, there's a lot of things in the market that are saying, like, I know Gary Vee says, oh, you know what? Your first hire should be somebody who is good at what you're not good at, or is good at things that you don't want to do.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? That is, because my question was going to be like, how, like, when you said, okay, well, the first set of people, call it the first 1 to 3 people that you hired, what was your process of knowing who it was that you wanted to bring on?
Well, as a small business, I needed people that could do what I was doing, right? So we could do more of the same thing to make money. It wasn't until you got enough critical scale that now you need bookkeepers and you need administrators and you need all these other things. So in the very beginning, it's basically, in my case, it was talented people with their hands that could do more of the same thing of what we're doing.
Right.
But that changes at some point. You then get to the point, like when I hired my first personal assistant, we wrote a list of 5 things that I could get off my plate that would open up some free time for me.
Right.
5 things that I could delegate to somebody else, right? And they were fairly substantial things, but they were something I could quickly teach somebody and they would take it, no problem. And a week later, I hired a personal assistant online and gave her those 5 tasks, and I couldn't believe it. It was like I was on vacation all of a sudden. When she took that workload off of me, I had so much free time. It was just unbelievable. So when you're, if you're looking for your first person, you may not necessarily be in like the trades business like me, but having somebody that can start to take some of those things off your plate and free up your time, that allowed me to start focusing on more important things. And that process sort of repeats as you go and go and go. And now today I have all of my employees doing all of those things that I ever used to do. We call it exiting my role, right? I've taught them how to do everything I used to do. And my new role now is just growing the business, learning about business and growing the business. And they've taken on all my responsibilities. And now each one of them is exiting their roles and teaching the guys underneath them.
It was interesting because, like I said, and you know this story all too well because, like, you literally kind of walked me through this whole thing. But, when I brought on, I went to a business boot camp with Grant Cardone and fucking Adventura, and I got all fired up, and I had a bunch of people, right? But I had 2 very important key positions that I hired for last year. And one of the things that I did was I gravitated to those persons who had like this entrepreneurial spirit, right? They were like, oh, well, I'm either I have a business that I'm like a side hustle that I'm doing that's in the same space, or this is something that I eventually want to do, right? And so I was like, oh, well, that's cool, because in my mind, if I hire somebody with an entrepreneurial mindset, they'll be willing to do more, right, than a quote unquote employee mindset. That shit backfired on me
that's not
tremendously, simply because it was like I was having conversations where, oh, I don't have time to build my own brand because I'm working for you.
Right.
It's like, so kind of like what, I guess, I know when you said just now, the technical aspect of what you should look for in a hire, but even beyond that, like what types of qualities, personalities, because, and how important is that in your first hire? Because like you said, one of the things is you wanted people who can do what you do so you can duplicate your efforts.
Yeah.
But that's technical, because I had a guy that was very good technically, but his attitude sucked. Right? And so it's like, this ain't gonna really work out.
Right.
You're good. You have good technical skill,
Yeah.
but your attitude sucks. So like, kind of, let's talk through that a bit about, what is most important. And, with that first eye, you want somebody who can duplicate your effort so that you can, output more. But what are some other things that you probably should be considering with those? That first, I would say 1 to 3, 1 to 5 hires.
So as you were talking there about hiring those people that didn't work out, it's important, or something that I learned that's very important, is that most people are not born leaders. They don't want to be leaders. They want to be led. And typically what small businesses do is they go hire a bunch of people, which is like relief, right? That you now don't have to do the work, and you abdicate and you just send them off and say, do the job, and you walk away, and it's finally you have people and everything's better, right? But the problem is you're not being a leader. You're not teaching them anything. You're just like pushing them off on their own. And that's not what most people want. Most people are not entrepreneurs naturally, and that whole situation fails because they're working in a job because they want to be led, right? They want to be taught. They want to work for somebody. But as an entrepreneur, somebody that's rarely ever done that, we just assume everybody wants to be like us, and that's not the case at all. So you actually have to lead those people, and you have to teach them, and you have to become a good leader. You can't just push them off and say, oh, they'll be like me and they'll handle it and they can take care of it. It doesn't work that way. And that ends up in most of the time tremendous failure. And I did that too. I definitely did that. But now what we do is we have a very, I would say, sort of strategic and lengthy process that we put them through from the very, very beginning.
Right.
And we're teaching them every day, whether it's something to do with their skilled trade. Virtually every day, we work on personal finance. And this is effectively like a construction company, right? Teaching the employees about finance. We talk about real estate. We talk about motivation. And we have a morning meeting every day where we discuss all of these things. But all of that is the fact that these people spend a good chunk of their lives with you. And we want to go a certain place, and they need a leader to get them there, and they need help, and that's what they're looking for.
So, because I as you're talking, it reaffirmed some mistakes that I made as a leader, right? Like, and I totally agree with you. I think a lot of entrepreneurs make, and this is multi-layered, because like you have somebody who can bake a really good cake, right? That doesn't mean that they have the business sense to run a bakery,
right?
Nor does that mean that they have the leadership skills to lead a team to make the bakery the best bakery in the world, right? So, I mean, Jonathan, the thing that I'm trying to figure out, right? Like, because I think one of the challenges that I had where I failed miserably, like I totally fucking failed, was that I was leading my team the way that I wanted to be led.
Yeah.
Like I was saying, I'm going to build this organization the way that, into an organization that I would have wanted to have when I was first starting out. Right. And honestly, that shit failed miserably because I had to let the entire fucking team go. Right. Like, hold on, this isn't working. Yeah. So when you talk about, I mean, and I appreciate the fact that you said, you weren't necessarily a leader. You were good at your craft. Yeah. But when you started bringing people on, you recognized that there was a shortfall in your leadership ability. Yeah. But so it's a two-part question. The first part is, after recognizing that there was a shortfall in your leadership ability, what adjustments did you make? And then how did that translate into your leadership style now so that you can get the most out of your people? And hold on, third part, and you could probably put this to the first part. Like, what mistakes did you make when you were first starting out, bringing people on in your leadership approach or your leadership style? I know that's a lot.
It's a lot, yeah. I think in the very beginning, I didn't even consider that I was a leader, right? And so I didn't I didn't put in the effort to really help the guys in a lot of ways. I hired them. They were highly skilled, and I just thought they could do everything that I could do, and I don't even need to go to the shop. They got it. You know,
Right,
it's all
right.
under control, right? I need to go out and do sales and other things, and that's just not the case, because people want structure in their lives, right? They want leadership. They want to see that the leader is solid. And something else that I've learned along the way is that a lot of people struggle with the insecurities of their future and their job. The future of their job, and where's their income going to come from next month or next year or whatever. And all of that has to do with, it's statistics, really. It comes down to living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
And the majority, I forget the exact numbers, but it's like 90% of the population lives paycheck to paycheck or worse.
Yeah.
So when people are struggling like that, you have to like understand that as a leader, and you have to either understand or think like they're thinking, right? If they come to work and they have tremendous issues with being laid off from previous jobs, or when a project's going to complete, they don't know if they're going to have a job the next week.
Right.
And they think about these things constantly, and they constantly worry about that. You're going to really struggle with production, with getting things done. And then as a leader, if you're not even there, they don't really have anybody to believe in, right? And so that's a tremendous problem. And that's sort of how I did things in the beginning. I didn't understand any of those things. Now we sort of reaffirm that on like a weekly basis, at least, that we talk about our goals in the company. We talk every day about the things, our wins, and the things we've executed, and how we're getting there, and how they can do specific things to be long-term partners in the business. And that we want them to become A players, and we want them to be part of the business forever. And they can start to understand that there's a real future there. They don't have to worry. Once they put in the effort, they no longer have to worry about those things. And then in addition to all that, we do that finance training. And the reason we're doing that is because if that's like a major concern, and there's a Gallup poll that says that like 73 or 75% of workers are disengaged at work.
Yeah.
They're worried, they're stressed about their home life, and mostly about finance.
Finance, yeah.
And so you're really getting a small percentage of production out of them, and that's a majority of your workforce. There's another small sliver that are actually trying to sabotage you, and then there's a small sliver that are being productive and trying hard. So if that's the case, and that's what the stats show, you need to work on that large piece. That's a big problem, and that's why we do the finance training. We start with every new employee setting personal, professional, and financial goals.
Right.
And then we, from there, VPF, and we help them identify those things. We lay them out in 1, 3, and 5 year targets. And then we help them understand how to achieve goals, breaking them down into tiny little steps. We call it the rungs on a ladder, analogy of a construction industry. But when the rungs are too high and it's too difficult to step, you just can't get there. If you say, I want to be a millionaire, the rung is just too high. Like, how are you going to do that? And so you never do it. But if we can break that down into 30 little rungs on the ladder, maybe start waking up at 6 a.m. That's like step number 1. Well, I can do that, right? And you slowly start going and going and going. Those small rungs on the ladder can get you a millionaire really, really quickly. So we do that with all of their goals, whether it's financial, personal, whatever it is. And then we take their personal goals and we align them with the company goals. So the company's trying to achieve this and they're trying to achieve these things. And if we do it together as a team, we can both achieve everything together. And as a group, as the employees, helping each other, we're going to get there a lot faster. And that's why I eventually started the daily morning meetings.
Right.
And this is a lot of what we talk about in the morning meetings is our goals and how we're going to get there. And it's completely transformed the employees. I actually don't call them employees. They're team members.
Right.
We're all team members. We're all working towards the same goal. Right?
Yeah.
We're a team.
Yeah.
And they love basketball. So we use the analogy of basketball. Every morning we have our team huddle just before we go out on the court.
Nice.
We have we set our weekly goals on the job site, so we know the specific things we have to accomplish that week. And then individually, the guys get their specific tasks that they're required. So their position on the field is X, and they have to get this done. And if we all do it together as a team, we're winning that game, right? And we literally have a morning huddle, like outside of the job site trailer kind of thing. They're not hugging, but it's pretty close. And we go through these steps and how we're going to win the game, and that's how we treat it. And it gives you a certain fire in your belly and motivation, and then we go and attack it.
You know, and the thing is, I've had an opportunity to interact with you guys, like with you not being there. It isn't like, okay, well, JC is here, so we got to say, you know, what we got to say. Like, I've had one-on-one interactions with you guys. I've had group interactions with you guys. And exactly what you're saying here, they're saying, like, it's consistent. It's fucking consistent. I mean, I think what I'm trying to say is when you do your PPF goals for your team members, right? And y'all get out of the huddle. How much of Jonathan is invested into, you know, your team members being successful in their PPF? Like because
a lot.
What I find is, like, sometimes I want it so much for them, and I'm like, dude, like, if you just do this, and like, you could literally do everything, because a lot of times it isn't like super crazy stuff. It ain't like everybody's like, oh, well, you know, I want to have 100 million in my bank account by in year 5. It's like, no, I want to be able to just go to the store and not have to carry a fucking calculator in my back pocket. Like, I want.
One of the guys was, I hadn't called my grandmother in 5 years.
Wow.
You know, so that was his goal. I want to call my grandmother. He did it that week. But, like, that was a big step. So they're not always about money. They're not always big.
Right.
But you don't know their personal situation, and that could be big. Right. And there were family issues, but he just went out and did it. So what we love about these morning meetings and talking about these kind of things, it's very unusual as an employer to sort of talk about these things. It's personal stuff, right? But it's really helping them as a group to go out and take those tiny little steps.
But because as you're saying that, right, I'm replaying, because I subscribe to the same school of thought, right? Like, I believe that if there's alignment between my organizational goals and the individual goals of my team members, that I will get more out of them, because they can see a straight line to, well, if I just do this, I will hit my personal targets, right? But how do you break down that barrier of skepticism? Like, I mean, because what I've found is that
it's real.
Like you ain't serious. You don't care about me. Like, you don't really care about me. Like, why you care whether or not I call my? You just want me to show up, nail some shit, put up some cabinets. Right. You don't really care. You right, make you money because you're making all this money. You live out west and you're traveling and so like because I know this is where I failed. Yeah. Like, because I couldn't.
Very real.
Right. You know. So how do you, I guess, get them to really believe that you actually do care about them as not just team members, but as individuals, and you want to see them succeed? Like, how do you break past that fucking barrier, buddy?
There's a couple of like tricks and little key things along the way, but it's really, nobody believes anything till they see results, and even then they still don't believe it, right? Like, they only believe that much of the result, right? I had this conversation with one of my guys this week, so that never goes away, no matter what we achieve. They're making more money, all of these things. They've had great achievements in their personal lives and financially, and a lot of really good things, and they're very recent. they believe that much. They don't necessarily believe the next step, and they don't believe the bigger goal, right? And I think that never goes away, and that's like, and that's totally fair. I don't expect anything else. So it comes down to like the small wins, and we generally start our meetings with wins. I want to know like the things that have gone well in their life, and they're small and they're tiny, but they're real legitimate wins. And when they have wins, they believe that much. And so as you progress and you constantly have these wins, the skepticism starts to fade away. You stop hearing it, right? But that's like, but it's like a big challenge, and it's something that I constantly have to work on. And so like one of the techniques is everything I say has tremendous weight. The things I talk about and the things I say, they really believe in. They definitely don't forget, and so I have to be careful with the words I use. Right? I can't just be spouting stuff out. That's not going to happen. It needs to be real, and I need to be able to back it up. And so that's one skill, or like one very important element. I got to be careful with what I say because they really believe in it.
Man, Jonathan, like I said, I have gained so much from you, and you just like calling me on my bullshit. Like you're like, hey, like I remember recently is like, all right, you say you want to make $5 million this year. Like, where the fuck is the plan?
Yeah.
Where's the plan? I was waiting on a plan 3 weeks ago. I really appreciate having you in my life. Like I was very intentional about surrounding myself with people who were where I wanted to be. Mm-hmm. And because I think that's important, because it's like, if all of us in the same boat, we having the same challenges, but we're limited by our same experiences, right? The fact that I could reach out to you and be like, hey, this, and you can say, oh, I got over this, 2-3 years ago. This is what I did. Like that's valuable to me. What I want you to do for me though, and for those that are listening or watching this podcast, is if you're talking about building your team, right? Like, what are your, call it, 3 top things that you should do right now if you are a solopreneur wanting to build out your team, but build out a quality team? What are your 3 top things that you should do?
So if you're a solo entrepreneur and trying to, hire your first people, your first couple people, and regardless of where you are in business, I think it's extremely important that you're hiring the absolute best. You're looking for A players, and you always want to be hiring people that are better than you are every single time. And it's not always easy, and it's difficult. And again, it comes down to one of these things. If you don't know how to do it and you're not good at it, you need to learn, right? You need to read some books. You need to listen to audio. You need to get on YouTube. In today's world, it's very easy and quick to learn things. And so if you're not sure, you need to just go out and attack it and then hire the absolute best. And so I give an example of the way we used to hire. We used to write a job description and post it or something. It sounded like a prison sentence, right? You had to have this, and you had to have this, and you had to have this, and so many years of that. Right. And it's like, who wants to work for that company, right? Now, when we hire someone, I just posted one on Upwork 2 days ago, and we talk about a company that's growing to 100 million, and we're looking for team players that want to get us there. And so it's all about the vision and where we want to go, and challenging people to be the best of who they can be. That's a totally different thing. That kind of thing attracts A players. And A players don't want to work for shitty business owners. Right. So you got to have it together in order to attract those people. But they're out there and they're looking. So that's a skill you need to develop, and you need to learn how. And once you can do that and attract those A players, now you're off to a good start. And you have to let the others go. And that's hard. I did it this week. Wow. I had to let somebody go that was like a B- that had been with us for a year and was a big part of our team, like a big chunk. But we're not going to get to our goal and where we want to go with B-. Yeah. And that's not fair to the guys that are committing and trying their hardest. It's not fair to everybody that's better than a B-. And so we had to let her go, and it really sucks. But you really gotta get good at finding good people, and it's really important to hire great people. that are just going to blow you away when they start. If they're not blowing you away and you're struggling from the beginning, then it's not the right person.
Wow. That's incredible. So, I mean, Jonathan, for I want you to look in that camera. Just let the people know where where they can find you. You know, they want to reach out, if they want to work with an amazing company. just drop where people can find you.
Generally, the best way is on Instagram. We're posted on Instagram constantly, but you can Google us, Facebook, Instagram, anything. Zoanna Millwork in Nassau, Bahamas, and I'm sure you'll be able to connect that way. And we're available just about anywhere in the Bahamas. We work on many of the different islands, and we have big crews set up everywhere. So yeah, we can tackle just about anything. And if you want to find me personally, you could just hit me up at jc.bahamas on Instagram. You can find me that way to contact me individually.
I don't say this often because I'm like, if you were here, you were here. But I definitely, because you're such you're a part of my strategy to get into 7 figures, just so you know. So I know I'm going to have you back. But, dude, I really do appreciate you taking the time to just come in and you know, have a conversation with me. And I do believe that you added tremendous value to the people that are listening, are watching. And I just appreciate you, man. Like 100%. I appreciate everything that you're doing for me personally, but everything that you're doing for your team and for our small island country and those guys. Like I said, I've had an opportunity to sit down and talk to you guys, and it's like you the real deal. Like, they really believe like that you have their best interests at heart. And I mean, just talking to you, like I believe that you do. Like, I believe that you are working to create a company that really puts their team members first, man. And I applaud you for that.
Yeah, you have to, like a Grant Cardone saying is that collaboration is the new currency.
Yeah.
You can't do it alone. You have to do it with people, and the network of people that you have determines your net worth. So, you know, having that network of people around you that are mentors or that have been where you want to go, you know, small, medium, and large, big targets, it really makes a difference. So we definitely need to do this again. Our next one we can talk about finance or something totally different. But yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you taking the time out. And guys, listen, go follow Jonathan. Go follow Zoanna Millwork. I mean, this dude is the real deal. I have benefited from his input and his counsel and his guidance and just conversations, man, directly. And so, Jonathan, even though I ain't got nothing in my drink,
it's fun.
it was fun.
Thanks, man.
We'll definitely do this again. And guys, be sure to click the subscribe button, like, share, comment, and let me know, you know, what we want to talk about next. I appreciate you. I appreciate your attention. Until next time on the Value Add Podcast, peace.